These are the 8 biggest stories of the NCAA season so far after week 1. And I just got to say, off the top, it's so great to have college wrestling back. And it was great to start the season, week 1, with the All-Star Classic. I would personally vote to always have it kick off the season November 1st. Whenever a competition can begin, that's when we should have the All-Star Classic. I'm going to give you the top 8 storylines after week 1 of NCAA wrestling, starting with number 8. Let's go to Roanoke, Virginia. Dylan Campbell for Virginia Tech. A dominant winner at the Hokie Open with 2 techs and 2 majors. But what stands out is who he beat in the final, Maryland's Braxton Brown. He beat Brown by an 11-0 major decision. Now, if you're not as familiar with Braxton Brown's work, and that's what makes this win significant. For Braxton, all last year, the only people who beat him last year were All-Americans, finished as All-Americans last year, and he wasn't bonus pointed one time. And now why this is significant is a couple reasons. One, Dylan Campbell was thought to be a solid guy, but everyone felt like he was just kind of holding the spot for Aaron Seidel until Virginia Tech ultimately decided, hey, we should go with the blue chip recruit, true freshman Aaron Seidel. That was my assumption. As someone that follows Virginia Tech closely, I thought it's going to be Seidel eventually. And now you got a guy that bonuses his way through a tournament, who dominates a guy that is frankly wasn't dominated by anyone last year in a very tough 133. A guy that's beaten All-Americans in the past. This is a nice win for Dylan Campbell. And if he continues to wrestle like this, it's going to be hard to go with Seidel year 1, knowing you could redshirt him. So something to monitor there, but a great start for Dylan Campbell. Number 7, let's go to Wisconsin. The Badgers had a great showing against a tough North Dakota State squad. Wisconsin winning 36-3 over NDSU and pulling 2 really significant upsets. You had Cale Anderson at 184 taking out number 9 Aiden Brennett. And then at 157 pounds, you had Luke Meckler taking out number 10, a returning All-American, Gavin Drexler. And for Wisconsin, definitely had some up and down years. But if you look at this lineup, they've got a lot of talent. You add Meckler and Anderson clearly to the mix now after they both knock off top 10 guys. They've got Nicolas Rivera at 25. He's in the top 10, as is returning All-American Zan Fugit. He had a great showing last year as a true freshman. You've got Joey Zargo in the lineup. You've got Condon's rank. And then you've got the return of the former number 1 overall recruit, Braxton Amos, at heavyweight. And the Badgers got a tough squad. It's a good team. And definitely a team to watch as the season progresses. Number 6, one guy, Navy's heavyweight, Spencer, I'm going to get it right, Ncaa of Navy. My buddy J.D. Rader on FRL called him Spencer Lasagna, and now I'm going to mess it up. But it's Ncaa, and he beat Dayton Pitzer not once but twice. Dayton Pitzer from Pitt, the heavyweight. That guy's really tough. That's someone with wins over Colton Schultz and over Isaac Trumbull. And Spencer, we had him ranked, I think, around 29th. This is going to shoot him up the rankings quickly. Definitely a guy to watch for an emerging Navy team coached by Kerry Colat. So keep an eye out on Spencer Ncaa of Navy. And then we'll stay in the Navy Classic. A couple odds and ends there. With the number 5 storyline, some of the results from the Navy Classic. You had Raymond Lopez of American taking out returning All-American Jacob Van D of Nebraska. Now, this loss is a surprise to see Van D lose to Lopez. We don't know exactly who Lopez is. He was the presumed backup coming into this tournament, and then he beat the Americans' likely starter, Max Leet, in the finals of the Navy Classic. So Lopez could be really good. But 2, Jacob Van D, I don't think there's cause for major alarm here. This was a guy who I don't think made it to day 2 of Big Tens last year and then wound up on the podium. He's a guy who could have some up and downs throughout his career. I believe he was winning at the time of the fall. So no cause for concern for Jacob Van D. But for Christopher Minto of Nebraska, cause for excitement. This is a guy who was a presumed backup a year ago at Nebraska at 165. He beats out Bubba Wilson and goes on to place 4th at the NCAA tournament at 165. Out of nowhere, this guy was a totally under-the-radar recruit, and now he's up at 174. And JD said on the show, Chris Minto's going to be just fine at 174, and wouldn't you know it, Minto majors All-American Danny Wask 11-3. That's impressive. And then another impressive win, Max Stout of Pitt, tech fall win over Camden McDaniel, returning All-American last year. So that was the number 5 story, the results of the Navy Classic. Number 4, Let's go to the All-Star Classic, 149 pounds. He calls himself the Ski. Casey Swiderski, the transfer from Iowa State to Oklahoma State, made his presence known at the 149-pound weight class with a win. And though the score may not represent it, it was a pretty dominant one-sided match for Casey over Lachlan McNeil of Michigan. Two transfers squaring off at 149. And for Casey Swiderski, you look at this weight class, and Shane Van Ness poses a real challenge for everyone, and he's a certain favorite. But for a team like Oklahoma State, with the aspirations we know they have, trying to climb the rung, they were third last year, they want to be higher this year. They've got a good team, but an almost brand new team on the mat this year. Someone like Casey Swiderski being a potential finalist or maybe even a champion is something that maybe a year ago didn't seem like a possibility. But he looked fantastic in this match. He was all over Lachlan. His positioning was good. He held up strong for 7 minutes. His attacks were really crisp, clean, good finishing. He was just good across the board. And if that's the kind of performance they're going to get at 149, that's really going to help the Cowboys, not just at the national tournament, but in 2 weeks at the national duels, less than 2 weeks at the National Duels Invitational up in Tulsa. Oklahoma State's going to be putting their best foot forward trying to win it. And if Casey Swiderski's the best 149 in the building and at the BOK Center, that's going to bode well for the Cowboys. So definitely want to keep an eye on Casey Swiderski. A great start to his season. Number 3, Yonger Bastida. I went into week 1 thinking there's a lot of guys that can win this weight class. You got Isaac Trumbull. You've got AJ Fry. You've got Yonger Bastida. You've got someone like Tay Gadali. Right? These are really tough guys. You know, you lose Gable, you lose Wyatt and Greg Kerfley, and then that next rung below, it feels like all those guys could beat each other. And then I watched what Yonger did to Tay Gadali, dominating the hand fight, dominating offensively and defensively. He looks like a guy that's going to be so hard to take down this year, right? And I left thinking that's the best heavyweight in the country, and he's probably my pick to win a national title at 285 pounds. Now, 2 years ago, happened. He was undefeated going into the tournament. He had beaten Wyatt Hendrickson, and then he DNP'd. So up until the tournament, we're always going to have questions. Can he hold up throughout the NCAA tournament? But right now, he looks like the best guy in the country. Number 2, Ohio State lineup stuff. We had a lot of positions solidified for a team. I think of the elite teams, this is the squad with the most questions for their lineup, right? And when we heard Nick Bouzakis was going down to 125, it was intriguing because you've got Brendan McCrone's there, right? And it sent 2 messages. One, Ben Davino's the truth, and that played out at the Clarion Open. He won in pretty dominant fashion. And if Nick is vacating 33 to go 25, that tells you, how he's viewed internally as well. But then McCrone is no joke. This is a guy with a pin over Luke Lillidahl. He's beaten some good guys in the career. He's been up and down, however. And Brendan McCrone kind of strikes first. He wins the Clarion Open. He beats Bouzakis in a pretty close match. Now, what does that mean for Ohio State, throughout the season? This position, I'd say, is far from solidified. I think we'll see McCrone being used in the near term, and I think we could see them alternating in some duels, maybe at the national duels. They could play it by who they think the matchup is better with. But Brendan McCrone strikes first and is certainly in the driver's seat at this point to start at 125. 165, it was thought, is it going to be Ethan Burden or Patty Gallagher at 165 for the Ohio State Buckeyes? And it looks like Patty Gallagher is going to be the starter there, winning that bracket. Burden lost earlier, and feels like it'll be Patty. And then at 197, Luke Geog, this guy has not been able to get on the map for a consistent period of time. But when he has, he's been good. And he wins the Clarion Open. Seth Shoemate ends up losing an early match and then was pinned by Jude Correa. Jude Correa had a really solid tournament. And Luke Geog goes on to win the entire bracket, beating Ryder Rogotsky as well, who I think is going to redshirt. And really strong performance by Luke Geog. So the Ohio State Buckeyes, who are going to be an absolute factor at the national duels November 15th and 16th, getting a little bit of clarity around their lineup. And then number one, I think this was an obvious number one. It's Zack Ryder. And this is a significant storyline for a lot of reasons. One, and he's ranked, in 7th or 8th, and that was an earned ranking. A freshman, it's hard to be ranked really high if you're a freshman. But, he had won the Southern Scuffle, he'd beaten TJ Stewart. That was a status enough to get him in the top 10. But then you're really wondering, where does he fit amongst the Max McAnally, Angelo Ferrari, Rocco Welsh sort of class? Well, Jackson Smith is a good sort of measurement there, because Jackson Smith, a guy that was only bonused last year by Carter Starachi, or in his career by Carter Starachi and Aaron Brooks. Those are the only wrestlers to bonus point defeat Jackson Smith. And I actually thought Jackson might have the advantage here, and I was wrong in a big way. Zack Ryder looked the part of a national finalist, of a guy that can contend for a national title, who's going to be in battles with Angelo and Max McAnally. And so while he doesn't leave the All-Star Classic a favorite at 184, it's really hard to give that distinction to anyone, including Max McAnally. But it puts him squarely in the conversation. It's, again, a huge benefit to Oklahoma State, who is certainly talented, but they're going to be relying on a lot of guys that haven't proven it at the NCAA level yet. And that's what the story of Oklahoma State is going to really rest on, how these guys do at the NCAA tournament. And most of them have not done it. And now you got Zack Ryder, looks every bit of the part. His power was incredible, his positioning, and just the dog factor, just going after that major decision, says a lot about Zack Ryder. And so that's why he was the number one story for Jordan Burroughs after the All-Star Classic. I feel like he dominated the conversation online after that performance, and it's why he's the number one story after a great week one of NCAA wrestling. What did I miss, guys? What are the stories that stood out to you after a great opening week of NCAA wrestling?